Hey guys, Johnny Flatlands here. We're going to do some body work today on a Jeep Grand Cherokee. I just purchased this car. Needs a little work, but was worth the price. So I'm not going to bore you with a long video. So let's get it rolling. Here we go. So here's the Jeep, and we're going to work on this right fender. Pretty bad. Pretty rotted out. I ground out all the rust, and then I just put a little paint on here to rust over the week. Now it's weekend, I'm going to do some work on it. So you can see that hole here. That hole, the correct way of doing it is to have this cut out nice and square. Get a thin piece of sheet metal or steel. Get it tack welded in there with a MIG welder. But since we don't have a MIG welder, we're going to do a little cheating, and we're going to make it look just as good as it was. So we need tools. What tools do we need? First of all, you need a pair of safety glasses. That's number one. Anytime you're grinding, hammering, gotta have those glasses. We have our Bondo with our applicator, mixer, some primer. Now for that hole that I showed you earlier, I went out and bought this little piece of it's steel screen mesh. We're gonna cover that hole up with that. We're cheating, but it'll work. And I have a variety of sandpaper, all different grits. My grinder, which you don't need a grinder, but it's easier with a grinder. You could use, do it by hand with a heavy sandpaper to get it down to the metal, but grinder's a lot easier. We got a painter's tape, we got some paper, and if you don't want to get your hands dirty, put on some gloves. Okay? Here we go. So now we're going to do a little grinding. I taped up the bumper just so we don't scratch it, and we're going to do a little grinding. So I got it all ground down to the metal, and remember I told you that little patch that I bought? I'm putting it on there. It's self-sticking, so I'm going to put it on there, and then I'm going to hit it with a very light coat of Bondo just to let it grab and hold. And once it dries, then we're going to go with a heavier coat. But right now that's perfect. Alright, the next step is I'm mixing my Bondo. There it is. Let's get it all mixed up nice. I'll show you when I put it on the car. Alright, so I give it a very, very light coat of Bondo. I'm just going to let it sit and dry. The screen is there. I'm going to let it just adhere. Let it dry, and then we'll go from there. We'll give it a second coat. But right now, I just give it a very light coat just to get that screen to stick. And you follow the contour of the fender. And this is a second coat. I'm going to let it dry. It's a little rough, but we'll sand it down and get it nice and smooth.
Make sure you do a good job, babe.
Okay, so I have a rasp file. Now let's go off with a heavy Bondo. Comes off very easy. Let's take off all the heavy stuff. Once I get that pretty close to where I need it, then I'll go with the sandpaper. So right now I'm using the rasp file. And you can see, I have low spots. So I use a rasp file Now I have 80 grit sandpaper with a little pad. I'm going to bring it down to the contour of the fender. I hope my wife likes it. Alright guys, update. So I just sanded it down with 120 grit sandpaper. I got the contour pretty good. It looks pretty good. I can see the screen coming through still. So I'm going to give it another coat, light coat going up. This way, make it a little longer with the Bondo, and then I'll sand it down and it should cover it up. But, so I'm feeling with my hand. And if you feel a lump with your hand or a wave with your hand, you're going to see it with your eye. So you pretty much, you don't look at it, you just rub it with your hand, and you can feel if there's a divot or a bump or a rough section. You know you got to take care of that section. Your hand tells you everything. You may not see it with your eye, but after you put the primer on and you paint it, if you can feel it, you're going to see it. So I'm going to give it another coat and we'll take it from there. All right. So this is my third coat. I got it pretty good. The screen kept coming through, so I had to give it an extra coat for the screen. I'm just trying to get it smooth now and get the contour of the fender. This is where the fender has a deviation right here. You got the fender coming in this way, and you got the flat part here. So I'm going to work on this to get the line here. I'm going to sand down a little bit more. Hopefully the screen doesn't come through. If it does come through, I'm going to have to give it another coat, but I think I got it. So the next step is going to be I'm using 120 sandpaper. I'm going to go to 220, and then I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to give it a little bit of a prime, and then we'll be able to see if it needs any other work. So I had it, I sanded it down. I gave it a light coat of prime, and I see a couple of little spots that I didn't like, a couple of imperfections. So I just gave it another little shot of Bondo, and I'll let it dry, sand it down. That should be it. So my last sanding coat is with 220 sandpaper and some primer out of a can, you know, sandable primer, automotive primer. It should be. It looks pretty good. Should be fine. So one more light sanding, and I'll prime it. Then I'll show you what the final product looks like before I put the paint on. Okay, this is Johnny Flatlands. Enjoy the weekend. Okay, so I sanded it down. It looks pretty good. I'm giving it a light coat of primer now. That's going to be it. I'm going to be done until I paint it. And the car's not on the road yet, so I'll leave it primed for a little while, just so it doesn't rust. And man, that baby looks good. What do you think? Looking pretty good?
Yeah.
So we're gonna call it a day. She looks pretty good. I see a couple of very little imperfections, but with this primer, looks good. So this is Johnny Flatland saying, have a nice weekend.